if you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political lineage to the point that truth and justice becomes a secondary consideration, we say that your education is useless. So you want to see how are the so therefore step one is to process the raw marks. So the raw marks means you are processing to get the raw mean and also the raw standard deviation. So you want to see the actual scores, whether it was high or low, whether they were tens or hundreds, what has the mean for the comparison subjects and also the compulsory subjects. So after getting the mean, step two is to compare the standard deviation. So you want to see, remember, each student or each subject is expected to have a mean of 50. If a mean of 50, if the exam is out of 100, then a standard deviation of 15, that means the highest student is supposed to score 65 and the lowest student is supposed to score 45. That is the expectation. But remember, this is normally not the case. So that means these are the expected standard deviation and standard mean. So therefore, under this step, they are comparing to see if they are really scoring the mean of 50. Remember, some subjects score as low as a mean of 10, and some students score a deviation of even more than 50. For a case where most students are scoring 10s, and some students in the same exam, they are scoring as high as 100 or 90. So therefore, step 3 is to standardize the marks to cut that difference for those students maybe who have scored majorly E's and others scoring majorly A's, so that they can spread the grades across all the required grades from an A to an E for that matter. So therefore, the mark is given by the expected mean, which is 50. We can say expected mean plus brackets the raw mark the student has scored minus the raw mean, then divided by the raw standard deviation, then multiplied by the expected standard deviation. So remember, we have said that the raw mean from here, the raw mean is normally 50, then plus bracket, the mark that that student has scored in that exam. We can use maybe an example of 70, then minus the raw mean in that case. So you can say maybe the mean in that case was maybe 40, just guessing, then divided by the standard deviation of that score. Standard deviation can be even 12 for that in terms of guessing, then multiplied by the expected standard deviation. The expected standard deviation is always 15, as I have already explained, therefore multiplied by 15. So you'll get the score of that student in that mark for that subject. So having standardized mark for each and every subject, the step 4, they again process. They are now processing the derived marks, what I can call it for, to get now the standardized mean. So you can say they now define another mean and also another standard deviation. This one you can call derived mean and derived standard deviation, of which having them, they can now compare and see which regions have performed highly, which regions have performed lowly, which schools specifically, and also other factors like which subject has also performed highly or lowly, having the derived standard marks. So under step 5, they now grade or determine a grading system. So grading system is defined according to the derived standard deviation, so that if the student have a very low standard deviation, then they also have to lower their grading system according to their performance per subject and also a closer gap that they have. Remember, where they have a closer gap, the grading system is normally enlarged. So the system is supposed to capture from A to E, and therefore they are supposed to have all of them from a 12 to 1 mark. So we shall have to lower maybe to 45, to lower the A to 45, or to increase maybe to 95, depending with the standard deviation, as we have already seen up there. We can also move the E to upper value. For example, you can say E to be 24, or you can even say E to be 7, depending with how the standard deviation calculated has been found for the case of the raw and the derived marks. Having now the grading system, they now again process. Remember, this is the third process they are doing. They again process. So they are now processing the marks that have the grades. Remember here, they now have grades. So they also get the mean and also standard deviation per subject and per school. They get the standard deviation per subject, per school, per region, because it's now the final processing that they are doing. So therefore, each and every item required is now processed inclusive of it. so that they now even rank students at this position. And then from there, we move to process 7, of which process 7 is now done differently according to the level of the student. For example, if it is at Kcpe level, they now rank and process the exam. They move it to the qualified experts, you can say, for the KICD or the other expert and stakeholders involved, so that they now view and they then approve the result for being aired or being released officially. For the KCSE, remember, they are supposed to join institutions and universities. So therefore, they also capture how many universities do we have and what capacity can they acquire. Then from there, how many other institutions of law do we have and how many number of students can they capture. Then from there, they also modernize the mark before being ranked for the final stage of release. So kindly support the system. Remember, I've said you're supposed to subscribe so that you move on to our next step. This being the steps that they follow, we shall now see maybe what are the requirements for a student to go through so that he can qualify for a proper scaling and also a proper course that is after Form 4, or maybe how do they come up to split students to different schools. So kindly have a nice time. I really appreciate your time.